Did you know that your brain generates anywhere from 12 to 25 watts of electricity? That's enough to power a small light bulb. For this week's High Card, Dr. Cheshire and Sister Ann are here to tell you about how the brain grows and what that means for your learning. This episode is Growing Pains in Our Brains, and you're watching Playing the Ace.
If you've ever studied so hard that your brain hurt, this presentation is for you. We are going to talk about what happens to your brain when you learn new things. And spoiler alert, it grows. And growing your brain can really wear you out. So don't be discouraged when you're learning new things. It's not easy, but it's worth it. When you watch someone with such an amazing skill, do you ever wonder how she ever learned to do something like that?
Practice, a lot of practice. You may be surprised to hear that learning to juggle is more about training the brain than it is about training the muscles. Really. When you recognize something that you've not known before, you might find yourself saying, I hadn't made that connection precisely. Learning, whether it's juggling or math, is all about creating pathways in the brain, that is, connections between nerve cells, which allow chemical or electrical impulses to travel between the cells.
Every time you have a new experience or do something you've never done before, your brain grows, stretches, and rewires itself to create those mental pathways in the brain. Your brain is hardwired to perform that process. Then, if we repeat those experiences or activities, our mental pathways become stronger. Imagine these pathways becoming more deeply etched into your brain as you repeat the activities again and again. This is what we think of as practicing a skill. The more often you repeat an activity, the more deeply etched those mental pathways become.
If you've seen someone juggling but haven't tried it yourself, you have enough of a mental pathway to recognize what you're seeing. You're seeing juggling, but not how to do it. You need to give your brain the experience it needs to create and deepen the mental pathways. Recently, I decided I'd like to learn to juggle. And let me tell you, my mental pathways don't seem to be growing very quickly.
You can do it, Sister Ann. Just practice, practice, practice. Every time you pick up your juggling balls and toss them up in the air, your brain is etching deeper and deeper mental pathways that it will follow the next time you try to juggle.
Okay, I believe you.
Learning in school, whether it's math, biology, history, or accounting, is a lot like learning to juggle. For example, the experience of watching your professor work out math problems on the board is only one step in the learning process. You need to practice what you've been shown in class consistently and pay attention to feedback you receive from your textbook, online assignments, or professor. By reviewing your notes, talking to your classmates, and checking the answers on your homework and tests, you give your brain more opportunities to etch those mental pathways that it needs to succeed in the future.
Sure. But do you ever feel like your brain actually hurts or gets tired after you've been studying a lot?
Yes, it does all the time. In fact, there are reasons for that. It turns out that as we learn, we experience something like growing pains in our brains. Neuroscientists have explained a lot about how this process works, happens in your brain as you think and learn. Consider this. Despite taking up less than 2.5% of your total body weight, the brain is responsible for 20% of the body's energy consumption. The brain uses oxygen and glucose at 10 times the rate of the rest of the body. It churns through your available stores of energy, so when we perform mental exercise, it is very common to feel tired from all that work.
I see. So the process of building new mental connections is rigorous exercise, and it can be exhausting. And with the brain using so much energy, there's less available for the rest of the body, and your whole body can feel tired.
Right. So don't assume if you're tired that it means you're not learning. In fact, it means the opposite. You are feeling the effects of your brain as it grows and expands, literally.
Literally? How do our brains grow?
Let's look inside our brains for a minute. Your brain cells are called neurons, and you have around 100 billion of them. This diagram shows electrical transmission across several neurons. The neuron in the middle is receiving an electrical signal from the neuron to its left and transmitting it to another neuron on its right. You can only fully see the neuron in the middle, which is inside that purple box, while the other two extend out of the picture. Notice how each neuron has a lot of little antennas. These are called dendrites, which receive signals from other neurons through electrical transmission wires called axons. The space where an axon and dendrite meet is called a synapse. Here, chemical or electrical signals are passed along from neuron to neuron, forming the mental pathways we were talking about earlier. Through these synapses, each neuron connects to an average of 7,000 other neurons in your brain.
Wow, that's a very complicated process. But how does it help us learn?
Well, when you connect new ideas together, a lot of things happen to your neurons. Axons stretch out and reach for other neurons, while dendrites branch out like little trees growing from each neuron to increase the signals they are receiving. When we practice what we've learned, it is largely the process of growing more dendrites. When you apply what you've learned repeatedly, those dendrites increase in size and they gain a thick, fatty coating. The thicker the dendrites, the faster signals can pass through the axons and over the synapses. This enables you to come up with answers faster and more easily.
I see. So when we learn, our neurons really are growing. That does seem like it might tire me out or give me a little headache.
The next diagram shows the very limited number of neurons in the brain of a newborn child. Look how large and interconnected the neurons become after only a couple of years. Imagine what a network of neurons we must have in our own minds.
So the more synaptic connections we create between neurons, and the more dendrites our neurons grow, the easier it will be to identify patterns and to recognize and retain new information in the future.
That's right. And that's what we call the brain's plasticity, which is its ability to grow, regenerate, and adapt to new information. It comes from building up neurons with big branching dendrites that communicate through more and more synaptic connections. Stepping out of your comfort zone literally stretches your brain by allowing the dendrites to become like big trees with full branches. An active brain increases those dendrite networks and also increases the brain's plasticity.
So, if you want to become better at a particular topic, like math, you should practice repeatedly and check your answers. The new synapses will become stronger and adapt to firing more often if you access your knowledge more often and more deeply.
Yes, but it's important that we choose activities that increase our brain's ability to grow more dendrites. Just listening to your professor or rereading a section in your textbook will not promote learning. You learn by doing. Do your homework, check your answers, and then redo any problems that you've missed. Keep at it until you've got a strong network of neurons with big branching dendrites associated with that topic. But be sure to keep checking your work. Feedback is important so that you're growing the right dendrites for the right reasons.
Well, and you want to check your work because you don't want to spend a lot of time practicing something that's incorrect, because then you will create mental pathways that it'll be harder to erase later on.
But be sure to keep checking your work. Feedback is important so that you're growing the right dendrites for the right reasons.
You don't want to spend a lot of time practicing something incorrectly, because those mental pathways will be harder to erase later on. Speaking of feedback, remember that the Tutoring Center and the ACE is a wonderful resource to get extra practice as you study. You can work with tutors to check your answers, ask for supplemental materials to practice, or just to bounce your new ideas off a knowledgeable partner.
That's right. What else can we do to keep working hard at learning something even when it hurts?
Well, one thing I like to do is reframe the pain of learning as a helpful signal. Feeling uncomfortable or tired is a clear signal that you are actually learning something new. Neurons that are weak, unused, or that don't fit will be pruned away, while the neurons that we exercise get stronger and develop more connections.
Another thing you can do is focus on your long-term goals. You shouldn't try to learn everything overnight. Spreading out your learning over time will promote stronger connections between your neurons. Try to create a study plan that allows you to study for small amounts of time over a longer period.
It's also important to eat well and get good sleep. Learning is an exhausting process. And while we shouldn't shy away from the hard work, we should also feed and rest our brains very well between studying sessions. Studies have shown that this actually improves learning. Even when you sleep, your brain is still working and practicing what you've learned.
Most importantly, develop a good attitude. Embrace the challenge of learning. Easy learning doesn't last, but the hard and bumpy road to learning difficult skills will change you in ways you can't imagine. So keep at it, work hard,
and make an appointment with an ACE tutor to keep moving forward on your learning path.
Is there something specific you want to see next season of Playing the Ace? Well, show us your hand and email us at writing@alusa.edu. Send us those ideas or thoughts for future episodes. You can also reach us on our Instagram at @olu_ace. Thanks for watching Playing the Ace. Next week is our last episode for this season, so don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page and like this video. Stay safe and spread kindness. And as always, my favorite catchphrase, and yes, I wrote it, don't gamble with your academic success.
Playing the Ace is a new web series from ALU's Academic Center for Excellence. Every week, we will be talking about elements and strategies that can help you develop as a learner. Join us and enhance your learning experience.